Alright, what's going on, guys? Trev back again, here to bring you another video. This one's going to be doing our first kind of video after just finding out last night who the crossover character is going to be between The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead. In this one, we're going to focus in a little bit more, give our thoughts on whether or not Morgan ran into the Whisperers. Alright, so I definitely want to do this video with you guys so we can go through and focus in a little bit more on the big announcement that was last night. If you guys haven't heard yet, we got the confirmation of who the crossover character is going to be between The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead, and surprisingly, it has been announced to be Morgan. So this one is really kind of strange. It's a lot different from what a lot of us thought it was going to be. A lot of us thought it was going to end up being Abraham, but it looks like no, in fact they're going with Morgan instead, because there's only a few characters that actually have any kind of time in the series where they were missing for a while where you could fit in something with the Fear group. Morgan being one of those characters, Abraham I suppose is another one, and it's just a little bit strange because we're going to season 4 for Fear the Walking Dead this spring or summer, and now we have confirmation that Lenny James will definitely be in it, and he's been working on it, that kind of thing, and he will be in it. So what does that look like? How does that fit in? We don't have that official confirmation yet. We may have to wait until we get a trailer or until we actually see the season for Fear the Walking Dead, but definitely it just, makes me, probably most anticipated season for Fear ever, because Morgan really is one of my favorite Walking Dead characters, and it was sweet when they brought him back in season 5. It was awesome to see him again in Clear, and there's a little bit of time there where we didn't really know what was going on with Morgan. So, we'll have to see how they kind of fit this in. And I think execution is going to be the big thing here and how they make this work. And we'll go into some of your guys' comments in a little bit. For some people that hate this announcement, some people that like it, and we'll kind of give our thoughts on how this might fit together. So, Jonathan Carnagey says, remember season 3? In Clear, Morgan says, people wearing dead people's faces. What happens if they meet up with Morgan sometime after Rick leaves him? So that's, there's only a few time frames in terms of the, the way the Walking Dead universe has gone through to where they could meet up with Morgan. Which time frame would make the most sense? For me, personally, I really like this theory that when he said people wearing dead people's faces, that he probably did encounter the Whisperers before. I really like this idea. Now, some people might think, oh, you're stretching too much, Trev, this kind of thing. They're just going to have him. It makes me wonder, what's the reason for why they are using Morgan for this? They did have that in that episode Clear, so it's been a kind of a fan theory since I want to say about season 4, season 5, after Clear in season 3 when we started. I've done videos on this before. I've actually done this pretty much this exact topic, except this was before we knew there could be a crossover. Just the question of whether or not when Morgan said that, if he had actually encountered the Whisperers before, and that's why he refers to people wearing dead people's faces, because the Whisperers do in the comic book series, the Whisperers wear zombie skins. So they take dead people's faces, zombie skins, they wear them, and then they move in and among the dead. Just like we see Nick doing a lot in Fear the Walking Dead, and possibly, even Madison. So we'll have to see what happens with that in season 4 and just how this is going to work. But basically, for me, if they do it with Morgan and they don't make the Fear group the Whisperers, I would be pretty disappointed. I almost feel like if you're going to do Morgan, that line that he says there might be like the only tie-in that I can think of that would make sense here to have these pieces fit together. Now, like I said in my kind of reveal video where we discussed the reveal, I think it's going to be polarized. I think some people are going to love this one, some people are going to hate it. If they do the Whisperers with the Fear group, I love it. I absolutely love the idea of them using Morgan as the first crossover. And that would also mean, though, if they did that, that would not be the last crossover either. You would have to see the other way, go the other way as well too, where you'd have some Fear characters later on show up in the next season for The Walking Dead, season 9, season 10, something like that. So that could be really wicked. It's just that going back and forth with that would be very difficult to manage. You know, you have the original series filming, you have Fear filming, you'd have Lenny James going over to Fear, and then you'd have, you know, maybe if they do the Whispers thing, you'd have some of the Fear characters coming back in The Walking Dead later. If they can pull it off, that would be brilliant. I would love to see that if they can figure that out, if they can figure out how to make it fit in terms of time frame and not feel like too much of a stretch. You know, we've already seen a lot of whispery stuff from Nick and the others, and you can't deny, you know, what you're seeing there with some of the things they're doing, you know, Madison's alpha-like behavior. So it would be a stretch almost no matter what to get the series to fit together because their locations are so far apart. But we have seen the Fear group travel quite a bit. And, you know, now some people don't like the idea of Morgan having traveled in and of himself because it seemed mostly when we saw Morgan like he had just been in King County the whole damn time. But, you know, I mean, is it possible that he would have left after he lost everybody to go see if he could, you know, find another part of his family or something? Maybe see if his parents are still alive or something? I don't know. You know, execution, the details here are going to be what either makes it work or doesn't. You know, whether it becomes too stretchy, Stretch Armstrong, or whether it becomes like, okay, that logically, naturally does not feel contrived. That makes sense that he would be like, okay, my whole family's dead. Maybe I'll go see how, you know, if my parents are still alive in Texas or something. I don't know. I don't know how they're going to fit this in. We're going to have to see. It's definitely tricky, and I think that with them doing this idea to begin with is a bit difficult to try to figure out how this is going to go. So my simple answer is, if the Fear group is the Whispers, I love this. If they're not, then I kind of don't like it. I kind of hate it, you know. So we're going to have to see how that plays out. That's for me anyway. But let's go into some of your guys' comments here to see what you guys think. SavageJay 101 says, "How did Morgan get to Mexico?" That's the thing, because like we see Morgan in clear, like it really seems like he never really traveled that far. It really seems like he was there in King County most of the time, and even after he lost his family, this kind of thing. You know, maybe he left for a little bit and then kind of came back later because it is his home and he doesn't know what else to do or where else to go, kind of aimlessly losing his sense of, you know, purpose in life. So it's possible that he could have left for a while, checked on somebody like family, and then gone back. But I just don't know. You know, if he had parents, you know, somewhere out there after he lost his own family, maybe going to check on them. You know, maybe that's reasonable. It's tough, but I don't think Morgan would go to Mexico. I think you have to go the other way. You have to have the Fear group come, you know, to closer. You have to have the Fear group go to King County, or to go closer at least, a lot closer. Otherwise, it's going to be really tough. Ryan T says, "Hate it, Trev. Makes no sense for Morgan to take a random trip to Texas, no matter where it is in the storyline. It feels like they're moving him to Fear just to pad Fear's stats, and I'll be really sad if this means Morgan is done in The Walking Dead. Also, if Morgan dies in season 8, then this news basically spoils his death. Bummed. Thanks for all you do, Trev." So, you know, we'll do a topic on that one this week on whether or not this confirms, you know, Morgan's death in The Walking Dead, that he's going to be in Fear. You know, so I'll save that one, I think. But I get what you're saying, that traveling that far in the zombie apocalypse, it's a bit tricky. And then also just that, let's make it real simple. The distance is a bit tricky to close, you know, because the groups are so far apart. We're going to have to see in season 4 how they're going to connect the two without making it feel too contrived. So that's the thing. We're going to have to see how they do it. And really, I can't judge until we see those episodes and we see that development, or we see that process, and we think, does that seem natural for this character to want to have motivations to do this or to do that? You know, maybe if they do like, you know, show Morgan after Dwayne's death or something, he's losing his mind and he decides to leave somewhere, they can make it work, and it will feel like it fits in. But we're going to have, again, you know, we can't really rush it. We kind of have to wait and see. We know Scott Gimple is executive producer on Fear season 4, so, you know, if he can figure out a way to fit this in, then cool, man. I mean, I don't doubt him at this point, because he's done some great stuff for Walking Dead. A lot of the best character stuff in The Walking Dead is his work, I would say. Andrew Ortiz says, "I'm sure they will explain why Morgan went to Texas." And yeah, they have to kind of like have it make sense. They have to kind of design it in such a way where it all fits in and the pieces all fit in together. So we'll see how well it fits in together without people feeling like it's too much of a stretch. Elbert Maldonado says, does this mean Morgan will die in Season 8 of The Walking Dead? So another similar type of question there. And again, we'll keep that for a separate video this week, and we'll dig into that one later. Mike Joseph says, I don't know, man. I think Abraham was a better choice. Jay Morris said, are you disappointed that it isn't Abraham? So I'm not disappointed that it's not Abraham if they go with the Whisperers. The thing is I think that Scott Gimple has really taken the character of Morgan in the TV series version, and he's really, and also with Lenny James, being willing to do Fear and to do this. I appreciate this. They're taking Morgan. They're elevating the character to a higher level in terms of the Walking Dead hierarchy here. For a lot of people, they'd say, well, Morgan was in the first season, he was cool, and then he came back, and there was a few years where he was there, and he was fighting with helping the others, and then eventually, maybe, if they kill him off this season, you say All Out War, he died, or maybe in a couple years, if it's not this season. If he gets killed off in season 10 or 11 or something, you say, okay, then they killed him off here, and he's forgettable. But the fact that he's the first crossover character between the series from Walking Dead to show up in Fear kind of solidifies his position as a very important TV series version character where, he's definitely not a forgettable character. Like, he's one of the most important characters in the Walking Dead universe, right up there with Rick and Daryl and some of these other, top tier, maybe Maggie at this point, because she's kind of a leader in her own right and that kind of thing, and a big future in that for the series. So, he's right up there as one of the top biggest Walking Dead characters because they're doing this with him, which I do like. I'm more of a fan of Morgan than Abraham. I like Morgan better than Abraham, but I just felt like for Abraham, it fit better. It was less of a stretch. It made some kind of sense because we don't know a lot about his backstory. Whereas Morgan, I felt like before this, it was pretty closed in. We kind of had a good idea, but I guess maybe they never really confirmed that he just stayed there all the time, or this kind of thing. We know he ran into some people, so we'll have to see, man. We'll have to see how it fits in. But am I upset? That they didn't go with Abraham? No, not really. I just thought that Abraham made the most sense is really the idea, and that Michael Cudlitz might want to do it. Jack Roxable says, Trev, it can't be a prequel. There's no way that Morgan could go that far west, then come all the way back to the same area in between the time we see him from Season 1 and then again in Season 3. Morgan even says to Rick and Clear that he kept trying to contact him on the radio. So that means he was probably still around the Atlanta area for a while during Season 1 of The Walking Dead. That leaves even less time. There's no way it could have happened after Clear because we see him again a couple times in Season 5 and then he eventually arrives in Season 6, and he was with Eastman, so that's as well too. There's no way a prequel could make any sense unless the Fear group in Season 4 starts in Texas and heads very quickly east. A sequel would work. Maybe the second half of Fear the Walking Dead Season 4 starts with a time skip, and the Fear group ends up in the Walking Dead area after Season 8, and that's when we see Morgan cross paths with them. But then, again, during Talking Dead, Lenny James made it sound very much like Morgan was going to die in Season 8. I really don't know what to make of it. So, yeah, I hear what you're saying, dude. For Jack and for a lot of you guys, it's super confusing to try to figure out how this is going to go. Even though a prequel is difficult to do, I think that doing it after his events of The Walking Dead would be way harder. Does it make sense for Morgan to just leave the battle and just leave after the season or something, and then a huge time skip to make it fit, and then the Fear group runs into him? I think that would be even more of a stretch, to be honest with you. I mean, to see how many year time skip for the Fear group, you'd be basically skipping their entire journey in the zombie apocalypse. You'd be going from year 1 to where are we at right now? Walking Dead time, 3 or 4 or something like that. I forget. I haven't done a timeline video for a while. But you'd basically be skipping, the entire Fear group's journey. And I don't see that. I think it has to be a prequel. Otherwise, then to me, it's a sequel is you just skip the entire story for Fear just for Morgan. I just don't see it, man. There'd be too many blanks in there if they were going to do that. So I think it's got to be some kind of prequel, man. I just think it has to be. Susie's View says, I had to comment, I'm not happy with the announcement. I think enough has been said about Morgan. All this time, there was never anything mentioned about his ever being in Texas. I did read a while back that Lenny James wasn't happy with the lack of scenes his character had a couple seasons ago. So I'm just wondering, does his crew in that have something to do with why he's chosen? I would have loved it if it had been Abraham and his story. Sometimes I feel that the EOs don't listen to their longtime fans on what was or what has worked or what didn't work for us. So that's Susie's view. So it sounds like she wanted to see Abraham, maybe pretty upset that it's not Abraham and that they went with Morgan. Certainly an unexpected twist for me as well, too. Susie, I did not see that one coming for sure. I never even considered that they could use Morgan. But yeah, the distances, we're going to have to see what they do about the distance. It's going to be a bit tricky. And yeah, one more. It's crazy, man. Chris Scanlon says, I don't even see how this logically makes sense. Right now, Fear is right around where The Walking Dead was at the end of the first season. Therefore, Morgan would have already met Rick, which happened in Georgia. The Fear characters are heading to Texas. Either Morgan goes to Texas between the pilot and Clear and then comes back before Clear. That would also require Dwayne being with him, since Dwayne died in the same town that the pilot episode was in, or Morgan survives all out war and just decides to leave for whatever reason and ends up in Texas. That would require Fear to make a time jump. So it's really crazy, man. It's tough to say, but I think that the idea of a prequel is going to fit better than your idea of him just leaving all of a sudden and doing some kind of like story from that. That'd just be so hard to do. To me, I just feel like, and again, I could be wrong because I was wrong about it being Abraham. I thought it was going to be Abraham, and it really wasn't. So it really isn't. So with that being said, yeah, I think it's got to be a prequel, but write your comments below. Let me know what you guys think. And the last one will be from Deadshot, who says, Q&A, is the crossover a desperate move to bring viewers back to both shows? So it would not be a desperate move for The Walking Dead. Could it be a desperate move to try to save Fear the Walking Dead? Well, yes, but also, now they did say they were never going to do crossover between both shows, and then they have changed their minds on that one. They've changed their stance on that one. Maybe it's because they realized, like we've been saying for a couple years now with Fear, that, and also maybe they expected Fear to perform better than it has. Maybe they thought, well, with Fear, if we have someone go from Walking Dead to Fear, even though the distance is tough to close, if we can figure out a way to have it make sense and have it fit, you're going to help out Fear a lot. You're going to get a lot of those viewers that are not watching Fear, that watch the original Walking Dead, to maybe cross over with that character. And I've already seen a lot in comments where people are like, oh man, I got to get caught up on Fear the Walking Dead now because I have to see how this works and where Morgan ends up there, so I can see what part of this journey is with Morgan. And then the only other thing I can think of that helps explain it away a little bit is that so much can happen in a short period of days or months or a year in the zombie apocalypse. So could it be during the time when, let's say season 2 of The Walking Dead, when they were at the farm and all that stuff, and maybe part of season 3 that Morgan was still in the same spot, but the Fear group somehow traveled through there, something like this, somehow made it there. I don't know. That he would have run into them, that makes some sense, but it's tricky, man, for sure. So I think it's a move to help out Fear and also to give Lenny James more work that he wanted, because they weren't really giving him that much work, and he wanted more, which is good. I'm happy for that, and I'm going to be happy to see him in Fear, even if it's a little bit of a stretch. It's probably going to help Fear out a lot, and it's probably going to be very interesting to see, so long as it fits. I think Morales was a little bit of a stretch. Morgan maybe more, but if they're going to do a lot of crossovers between the series, then this might just be the start of it. And we might see that Fear cross into The Walking Dead with the Whispers eventually afterwards. So if that's what they're doing, I'm happy with it. If they're not, then but if you look at the writing for the first few seasons of Fear, a lot of what you're seeing here is very Whisper-esque. If you look at season 2, the way Nick moves, the way he walks with the zombies, him even taking heads and putting them in shopping carts and stuff, Madison and her decisions and the things that she does, you know, it's really tough to say that you're not seeing the birth of a villain type of group with Fear the Walking Dead. So let me know what you guys think, man. Write the comments below. How are you feeling? What do you guys think about this? Do you hate it? Are you in the middle? Do you love it? Where are you at? That'll be it for today's Q&A, guys. I'll be back again, of course, tomorrow for another one. Leave me your questions because there's just so much to talk about. If you like this video, please thumb it up below. You can share, you can favorite. If you're new and you want to subscribe to the channel, I would appreciate it, and you can do it at the bottom left. That's it for this one. I'll see you guys again soon for another video. As always, it's Trev, and I'm saying peace. Later, guys. See you soon.